What's next for Sugar Sean O'Malley? Hello everybody and welcome to Against the Fence. This is your UFC 299 Aftermath show where we've got a lots to talk about. We're going to be talking about Dustin Poirier's next move. We'll be talking about Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Jack Della Maddalena potentially. We'll talk about that impressive debut from Michael Venom Page and what's next for him. Talk about a huge prediction I've got for O'Malley versus Merab, and then we'll also round things off by talking about Sean O'Malley's chances against Ilia Topuria. Should that fight happen next? Could it happen next? So I can't wait to get your thoughts on that. So if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, and of course leave a comment if you're joining us the next day, and get in the chats if you're joining us live. Be good to get your thoughts on opinions on all of these topics. Good evening. Oh, yes, Breezy. I see you in there. Yes, my favourite blockhead. Haha, you see what I did there? Kaboom. He says, Brian, we caught you for a little bit during the watch along, but hopefully, fingers crossed, you can stick around for the show and give some of your thoughts on some future matchups for the winners and losers of this past weekend's main card. Hope your day is going well. Hope your Monday is going well. Some honourable mentions then before we break down things from the main card. Got to talk about Curtis Blades' impressive win against Jailton Almeida. I picked Almeida, but fell short. Of course, it's kind of that rinse and repeat game plan for him constantly. Not really setting up his takedowns. Curtis Blades stuffed it, rained down those shots to the side of the head, and that's all the referee could do. Stop the fight, and Curtis Blades moves on and puts an end to a potential future contender. Well, I mean, he still can be a contender, can't he? But, you know, there was a bit of a hype train there with Jailton Almeida, but we pumped the brakes for a little while. Great impressive win from Mateus Gamrot, defeating Rafael dos Anjos by decision. He now moves on to bigger and better things. Hopefully he can get himself into the top 5 later on down the line, but maybe we'll add that in as a bonus matchup perhaps when we look at the rankings, the current rankings at the moment, and predict what's going to happen come tomorrow when they get updated. Impressive win from Kyler Phillips as well against Pedro Munoz. That Rabias, the Spain, he was probably one of the talked about fighters of the weekend, purely because his knockout power and length proves to be tricky in the heavyweight division. Another 18-second knockout. And of course, got to give props to Joanne Wood for retiring on a win, and when she beat Mara Munoz via split decision. So lots to unpack from this past weekend. Very exciting. Can UFC 300 top it is the ultimate question. Now, if you caught our fan cam yesterday, the guy Sai and Red Wolf MMA were talking about how UFC 300 could top this past weekend's card, and they were saying that they reckon that we got to see some more finishes if it wants to get better. But who knows? It could very well happen. We've got Brian who says, was pretty busy watching the fights at my fellow podcast buddy's house. Oh, good stuff, man. No problem. Fights were unbelievable, he says. Click Clack says, Sai. Blockhead says, on spring break, I am here for the whole show, JK. Ooh. Spring break is coming up, isn't it? Is it? Wow, yeah. I'm actually, oh, wow. That's a few weeks as well. I'm looking forward to that. Look at that, Brian. Maybe we can sort some stuff on. Jump on a fan cam or a call of some sort, and who knows? Good to get your thoughts as always, Brian. Love it. All right, cool. Let's get into some recapping the events from this past weekend. Then, if I hit into this scene here, we'll start off with Peter Yan getting the job done against Song Yadong. I picked Peter Yan on this night. I did. I'm so glad the pick went through. I think overall I got 4 picks wrong on the card, which wasn't too bad. But Peter Yan's performance, stunning. Needed the win. Was very desperate. But he found his timing in that second round, maintained his pace throughout the second and third round, and just kind of was a bit too much for Song Yadong. He showed us a champion's mindset, against a rising contender who clearly was improving with every single fight that he was going through. And also, apparently, came out, I think, today, his manager said that he was dealing with an injury, and he could be out for some time now. I think it was a groin injury, and he wasn't able to kind of spar for a month, I think I read. So, it kind of sucks, but it could pay out timing-wise very well for this future matchup that I've got. We talked about it this past weekend, but we've only got one, and that would be Marlon Chito Vera. Now, do you think this is another fight for Petr Yan can win on his route to the title, back to title contention? Does it match up styly well for him? I think it's a good one for the fans, very entertaining. Yan's going to be a lot quicker than Marlon Vera. Marlon Vera is going to hit a lot harder. Question is, can Petr Yan take Marlon Vera down? I'm not too sure. Marlon Vera is going to have a bit of height advantage, I think, over Yan. But I think it would be a perfect matchup for him should he take that route. Blockhead says, for us in Texas, spring break is this week. Oh, okay. So you can be joining us this weekend. There's an early card this weekend as well. Slice's best card I have had the pleasure of commenting on. Absolutely solid. Brother B says, I expected this fight to be fight of the night. Not the best, but was a great scrap. Yeah, I mean, I think Petr Yan didn't really want to take too many risks against Song because, Song's wrestling is coming on really well. He's a power puncher. He's capable of knocking anybody out in the division. Probably one of the most power punchers, I think, in there, and that's on a long list of potential candidates there. But nonetheless, it was a good performance from him, against a former champion as well. And it's similar to Benoit Saint-Denis in a way. He's going to really sort of take this loss on his belt and kind of keep improving and getting better. So looking forward to seeing Song back into business later on, hopefully down in the year. It's definitely something to build off. The one fight that I've got for him is Merab Bautista. Now, if I go heading on here, as you can see, these are the rankings from UFC.com. So they're yet to be updated, but I think Yan's not going to move. Obviously, Marlon Vera's not going to move. Song Yadong's not going to move either. So my option for Song Yadong would be Merab Bautista, who's down there, as you can see, at number 14. He's on a 6-fight win streak, coming off of a win against Ricky Simón, which was quite surprising. I didn't think he was going to get the win in that one. If we take a look, then his previous opponents, decision against Ricky Simón. Damon Blackshear was a very entertaining fight, took him to a decision. Submitted Brian Kelleher. So it had some good wins, not too bad, but it would be a good jump for him. If it's not going to be Song Yadong, then I'd imagine he's due to fight either Jonathan Martinez or Dominic Cruz or Rob Font. But I personally think, and I'm sticking with this, I think Jonathan Martinez will probably fight Rob Font. And that'll be the next fight there. And that's probably due to get announced hopefully soon, if both guys are fit and healthy. That I haven't had a check on, I'm afraid. Breezy says, how are we doing, gents? Mate, Breezy, absolutely terrific. Glad you're here, as always. Yeah, what do you think is next for Song Yadong or Petr Yan? I guess the other alternative option, if you wanted to give an alternative option to Petr Yan, yeah... If the UFC decide not to do the Brandon Moreno versus Henry Cejudo fight, then I guess you could do Petr Yan versus Cejudo. But you are giving Cejudo another lifeline at fighting someone above him in the rankings. It's 2 straight losses now for him. He should really be fighting a potential contender, like the winner of Figueiredo Garbrandt. But then that's a tough one because he's trained with Figgy quite a bit. I mean, that's just throwing it out there. I think I've got other options for Figgy or Cody. But yeah, that's the only one that really stands out for Petr Yan, really. It's going to be some time. He's he's going to be healing up. I'd imagine Corey Sandhagen is going to be fighting Umar next. That's probably likely going to happen. Corey said this past weekend that he wants that fight. So yeah, that's the only real true options that I can see for both guys. All right, let's head on back to the second fight of the night. My boy Jackie Della Maddalena, picking up the third round knockout against Gilbert Burns. A perfectly timed knee straight on the break to put him out. And I don't know if you know this, guys. I looked at the scorecards and I can categorically say that Gilbert Burns was 2-0 up in that third round. So if he would have survived, we would have got a Gilbert Burns win. I'm so glad that Jackie D managed to pull through and get that knockout, because that was close. Round 1 was pretty close to score. I felt that Jack maybe done enough, and it was 1-1 going into the third. But it was confirmed that 2 judges at least had Gilbert Burns for that round 1. It's getting kind of difficult for Jack now. You know? 2 split decision wins, close fights. Close fight against Gilbert Burns. Passed it, though, against a tough veteran, former title challenger. His next move is looking pretty tricky. So if we go in now to the rankings, I think he's going to move up at least. I'm not sure if the UFC will give him. They might give him 5th place. I think Gilbert Burns is going to drop down because that's 2 in a row now. Colby might just keep his spot. I think he's going to go above Ian Gary. I think. I mean, you know, you could put Jack in at 6 and then Ian Gary in at 5. And maybe Gilbert slips even lower, you know. That would be my prediction if the UFC are really that harsh on him. But, you know, I think Gilbert's still a good fighter nonetheless. I think I've got a really good option for him coming up next. Breezy says it's a tough one to go for Yadong, depending on how he finishes it, but I agree on Davison. Ooh, okay, I think Davison's a good option. Brother B says that was incredible, as we were expecting Burns to win. I picked JDM, actually. I picked JDM decision, actually. And, you know, I would quite happily lost the point on the Fight Picks app. Because I'd, you know, especially looking at now, you know what the result was going to be. So happy he got the knockout. Breezy says, got to feel for Burns, man. Taken all the prospects, stuck it on them, and has done enough against most of them to be in the argument of who won the distance. Yeah, man. I think. Before I get into my JDM breakdown, I think we'll talk about the next option for Gilbert Burns. I think there's only real one option there, and that would be Sean Brady, because I'd imagine he'll be 1 spot above him. But Sean Brady's pulled out a lot of fights lately. You know, he's become a bit of a pull-out merchant. I think the last maybe 2 years, I think he's had few bout agreements, only fought once. Hopefully he's healthy and ready to go. But at the same time, you got Gilbert Burns, who's going to have a bit of a suspension now from getting knocked out in that third round. So maybe timing wise it could work out. But we'll have to see. You've got both guys are very good at grappling. You've got Sean Brady, who's a strong wrestler. Gilbert Burns, I think, would be doing a lot of his work off of his back in that fight. Brady does. I think he trains with some good grapplers. Did he train with Gordon Ryan? I can't remember now. It's not Craig Jones, is it? I think he fought Craig Jones in submission grappling, if I remember, or something like that. Anyway, but he does a lot of grappling. He's very enthusiastic about it. So I think that match would be really intriguing. I think if you're Gilbert Burns, you might fancy your chances on the feet in that one, especially after seeing what Bilal Muhammad did to Sean Brady on the feet. So I think that stylistically makes a lot of sense, and I can't really see any other real options. Sai says, yeah, I hear you, man. I can name a few fighters getting the backseat treatment at the peak of their careers. It sucks because their prime is literally a ticking clock and the UFC are wasting it out. Brother B says, JDM was my pick too, but I was doubtful come round 3. Yeah, I know. Squeaky bum time. And he says, I said Brady too if Brady shows up. Ah, there you go. So, a nice one, Brother B. Love that. Great minds think alike. As for Jack Della Maddalena then, he called out Shavkat Rakhmonov. He's obviously undefeated. Bit of a scary move. But is it the best move? Because if you're JDM, you've got a bit of a... you got a few people above you here. Bilal Muhammad is clearly the next guy in line. I think he's going to fight Leon Edwards, maybe in the Brazil card, I'm anticipating, or around there. Then you've got Shavkat, I think, which most people probably want to see in a title fight. Maybe he could be the backup for Edwards versus Bilal, perhaps. But in fact, we did get an update, actually, from Rakhmonov's team today, who reckon he's going to be out until August. So that's a bit of time. Maybe perhaps he's not going to be a backup. I'd give JDM the backup slot if that's going to be the case. Why not? I think Jack will probably do it if it was offered to him. But yeah, I don't know how long Jack wants to leave it until he gets back in there. Maybe we could see him in the summer. I'd imagine there's going to be another Australia card. You'd imagine that's going to be in the summer, right? Or at some point. Or is it normally February they go to Australia because it's cooler? I'm not quite entirely sure. But, yeah, so Shavkat's going to be out some time. It's a wise move, calling out Shavkat. Beat him. You make a big claim then to be the next person. And the winner fights the winner of Bilal versus Edwards. So, yeah, I like it. But if not, I think some fans would like to see Ian Gary versus JDM. But I don't think Ian Gary wants that fight. Ian Gary, I think, is quite stubborn. He wants to continue fighting people through the rankings, not even defend his ranking, which I think is quite shocking of the UFC, really. Look, I get it. He's undefeated. He's a young kid. But 2 back-to-back decision wins now. Isn't it? So, against, I think, guys which I think we were hoping he was going to get the knockout on. Split decision against Jeff Neal, that's quite shocking. So, look, I mean, JDM and Gary's a tough one. It's another fight where JDM has got to crowd the kick and get in close. He would probably have to do the same against Rakhmonov as well. Rakhmonov has got great boxing as well. We saw that against Jeff Neal. But then not only that, he does have a bit of a physical presence. He can take the fight to the ground. He can take the back and really cause problems. If you're going to make a prediction right now, gun to the head, you'd probably say Rakhmonov, rear naked choke. I think Rakhmonov would probably clearly be favourite in that fight, and I think that would be the most favoured outcome. That's my take on it anyway. So smash a like on the video if you agree, or if you've got an alternative option, get into the chats. Brother B says, foolish to face Rakhmonov. Brady makes more sense via rankings and similar conditioning. I'm with you on that one. Yeah, okay. Especially gives JDM a proper test, and against another grappler though, doesn't it? A stronger grappler at that as well, because let's not forget Gilbert Burns once fought at lightweight. Oi says, Ash is in the house. Breezy says, I'd take 5 rounds on an Australia card main event, maybe a fight night. Yeah, maybe the UFC might look at doing that. I mean, there's a lot to consider for the UFC at the moment. We're going to countries. Dana said in the press conference he felt that they want to go to Africa, they want to go to Spain. So there's a lot of thoughts on that at the moment. So who knows? And maybe those would be pay-per-view cards. Sai says, although Shavkat will punch him right in the top 3. Is that... okay. Breezy says, to be honest, I like the Colby matchup for Ian. I do too, actually. I do. I would prefer that matchup. I got to agree. I think that's absolute hype. man, again, we talked about it in the previous Aftermath, didn't we? We felt that maybe Ian Gary versus Colby in Brazil would make a lot of sense. So, yeah, I prefer that option. But, of course, we got to talk about Ian Gary because Ian Gary's name has been thrown out on social media prior to UFC 299. Brother B says, I'd love to see Ian versus Colby fight as well. Breezy says, nah, they fumbled the bag on Africa. Well, they did. But they could still very well go to South Africa with Drickus. I think that's probably in the pipeline. Raphael, hello everyone. Raf in the building. Look, great announcement as always, Raf. Good to see you. Welcome on in, my man. What do you think? Who do you want to see next for the likes of MVP and Kevin Holland? As that's going to be the next matchup we're going to get into. That's it, guys. Give brother Raf some love in the chats as always, because he knows this is the place to be if you're obsessed and passionate about the UFC. So yeah, that's the second fight on the night of this past weekend. Let's head on to the third one then. An impressive debut from Michael Venom Page as he defeats Kevin Holland via unanimous decision. It was unanimous, isn't it? It wasn't split, was it? Yeah, unanimous. I was right. Thought so. Does MVP style make you anxious, though, is my question for you guys, because it certainly made me anxious this past weekend. You know, when he darts at people at like 80 miles an hour with the hardest and biggest right hand possible, you got to think there's 50-50 chance that either he's knocking a guy out or he's getting knocked out. You know, but he's entertaining to watch, and not only that, he's flamboyant. He does make it a show, and not only that, he shared with Ariel a few hours ago of ideas for his entrance. His Instigator entrance was very good, of course, but it was going to be better. He said to Ariel that the soundtrack for The Undertaker was going to play. The light was going to be on the entrance to make you think he's going to come through the entrance. Then it goes off. Then it goes to somebody in the octagon to give you that visualization that he's already in the octagon, when actually it's his brother with a hood up, because apparently, or his brother-in-law with a hood up, because apparently he looks like him when once MVP's cut weight, and then the lights were going to go out again, and then the light was going to go back to the entrance, and he was going to be standing at the entrance. So give you that illusion that, you know, he's moving in such a short space of time, which would have been amazing, but it didn't get cleared by the UFC, and to be honest, I don't think the commission would have liked that idea, because, you know, it is the octagon is almost like a sacred place in a way, and MVP said that he mapped it all out for the UFC. He gave him timestamps. Said he needed one member of security to go with his brother-in-law in the octagon and all this, but it didn't get cleared. So unfortunately, we didn't get to see that. But MVP said that, you know, he's a very creative person, and he wants to be creative moving forward in his fights, or leading into his fights, should I say. So fingers crossed we get something special next time around. What did you guys rate MVP's performance out of 10? I think I'm going to give it a solid 7. You know, he was in some difficult spots against Kevin. Kevin had his back at one point and, you know, threatened the rear naked choke, had us on edge at one point. But, you know, I guess he was in the driver's seat a little bit with the exchanges. They were venomous. And he did enough to get the decision. I don't think there was anything wrong with the decision at all. Breezy says Drickus versus Izzy. Yeah, I think that'll be South Africa. Breezy says Mo at me at that either. One side would love it. Two, Cheeto got a shot. Oh, no one. Okay. He says it's the speed and timing he does it though. Holland just couldn't make the reads, and yeah, you spot on with that one. No, he absolutely couldn't, and I do think it was a tailor-made fight for him, for a debut. Yes, Ash, MVP was so good. Brother B says, I expected Kevin to do a bit better than he did. MVP snipes him all 3 rounds. MVP versus Wonderboy, let's go, says Sai. Yeah, we'll get into some matchups there. And one thing I do want to share with you, something that Dana said in the post-fight press conference, if you weren't able to catch it, is he kind of said something that made me laugh, really. He said, this is the first time Kevin's fought someone cockier than him. And that's so damn true, isn't it? And maybe he was a little bit gun-shy because of that in a way. He did get a little bit frustrated with MVP in that third round. Again, it just wasn't a great matchup for Kevin, I don't think. But if we head on to the rankings, let's predict where we think he's going to be. Probably that he's got to take the 13. If the UFC decide to give him number 12 or 11 spot, then they're really favouring MVP to make jumps, don't you? They're trying to give him every little bit possible, similar to what they did with Cheeto, which I think Aljamain Sterling was ranting about yesterday, saying that when Cheeto beat Pedro Munoz, they moved him up spots in the rankings, which didn't really make any sense, and that's purely to make the O'Malley fight even more hyped, I guess. But I'm expecting the same here with MVP. Dana wants to get him back in there pretty soon as well. So, look, maybe UFC Manchester, as that's being rumoured at the moment. I think it's going to depend on whether or not Tom Aspinall will, and maybe that's Tom Aspinall will maybe talk about in tomorrow's news show. I'm going to be doing a news show tomorrow, talking about a potential fight with Curtis Blades, a rematch there. But if that's not going to happen in Manchester, then hopefully they're going to bring a fight night to London in July and putting MVP as a headliner. That would be my guess. Brother B says both puzzles are difficult to solve. Wonderboy versus MVP would be quite the spectacle. Breezy says MVP's point on a positive versus a positive doesn't make a positive. I'd like to see him fight JDM. Okay, maybe that is a potential good one for MVP to fast track up the rankings. And on the chess match on the feet. So MVP Stephen Thompson is a bit of a fan favorite option at the moment, but is it the right move? Because he did also tell Ariel that he feels that fight would be a boring fight, and I gotta agree with him because both guys are snipers, both guys are technical strikers, and usually when that happens, you don't get the most entertaining of fights. It is very slow in pace. It is about making the right reads, and being very cautious, especially against another counter striker. We kind of seen this style of fight before. We saw Stephen Thompson versus Darren Till. That was kind of the same kind of outcome. So MVP shrugged it off. He wants a different option, and he also kind of likes Stephen as a person. They've got to meet each other. They've done some content together. So maybe we're not going to see that fight. The UFC would maybe still make it. Perhaps they could, because it gives MVP a potential option at going up in the rankings, because Stephen Thompson's 40 years old now. Now, I had a conversation with Taylor. Shout out to Taylor, who does some of the socials for us here at Against the Fence, and I had a conversation with him, and he said, but in Stephen's fight two fights ago against Kevin Holland, he really showed a different Wonderboy Thompson. He really took it to him. He really took a lot of risks, and we could see that against even MVP. But I kind of had to disagree with him, really, because MVP is more technical than Kevin Holland, and he's just a sniper as well. So it doesn't really make sense. And yeah, I've got to agree with Breezy's comments there that he makes. My option that I think is better for MVP would be Jeff Neal, sitting in at number 9 at the moment. Bit more of a traditional tight kickboxing style. I think the range that MVP has will be a bit difficult, and the timing will be a bit difficult for Jeff Neal, perhaps. So I can see that being a winnable fight for him. And look, we gotta think like the UFC here, because it's clear that the UFC control the narrative, and they like to make things play out the way that they want them to play out for certain reasons. So yeah, they would be my options. For Kevin Holland, I've got 2 options for him. It would be Neil Magny, seeing in at number 12 because he's just coming off a win against Mike Malott at UFC 297. That was about 2 months ago. And I would like to see him against Randy Rude Boy Brown. Tell me you would not like to see Randy Rude Boy Brown against Kevin Holland, because that's another fun fight right there. And I think that Randy Brown also needs another crack at a ranked opponent. I think I really do, because he's on he's on a few fight win streak now, isn't he? He's on 2 fight win streak, knockout against Muslim Salikov and the unanimous decision against Wellington Turnerman. So, I think that's about time to make those fights. Which one would you rather prefer out of those options? I would say Randy Brown, without a doubt. Neil Magny, I just, bit of taste in my mouth watching Neil Magny fight, I'm afraid. It's just how it is, I'm afraid. My opinions. Breezy says Randy Brown definitely deserves a top 15 shot. Yeah, he does. Because I think he fell short against JDM before JDM, I think, was ranked. He beat Trinaldo. You see, he was on the rise up. He really was. Beat Jared Gooden, beat Chaos Williams, and nearly got there. But I think it's about time. He nearly lost against Vicente Luque. That's what I was thinking. He had a crack back then, and that was in 2020, a ranked opponent. So fingers crossed he gets it. Smash a like on the video if you've not done so already. And also, Brother B prefers Randy Brown as well. So, lovely stuff in the chats as always. Heading on back then to our co-main event. I told y'all on fight night, the second round knockout, TKO, was coming in for Dustin the Diamond Poirier, who had to overcome adversity. We said that as well, leading into the breakdown. He scrambled out of a few submission attempts, rear naked choke attempts from Benoit Saint-Denis. He said in the post-fight press conference that Benoit Saint-Denis' strength surprised him, not his power. Although the guys in the breakdown show felt that Dustin Poirier had the most power out of the 2 fighters, I definitely felt that there was going to be a strength advantage there for Benoit. Dustin Poirier told multiple people in the week, was told by multiple people in the week not to jump the guillotine several times. Now, there's some memes that came off of the back of this past weekend because of that. But he did it anyway, right? So it does tell you a lot about Dustin Poirier. Even in between rounds, they were telling him. After the first round, they were told him not to jump the guillotine, but he still did it. So, he's probably a difficult cat to coach, no doubt. But was he right in doing it? Is the question I want to give to you guys. I've got a feeling, I think he was. It definitely gave Benoit something to think about and prevented him from getting off any ground and pound to start off with, and advancing position. Now, of course, when you jump the guillotine, you do run the risk of, as soon as the head is popped out, you can advance position, perhaps. But no, I think it was definitely a right move. It allowed Poirier to scramble back to his feet on those occasions and reverse position. So. But one thing that Dana said in the post-fight press conference about the fighters, saying that they're trying to make them lose. He said that there is like a reoccurring theme with a few. Someone else apparently has complained about it, and his reply to it was, "No, we don't determine if you win or lose. You do." Which, and which I think is a bit of a cop-out, really. Because it's pretty clear that the UFC like to control the narrative or create some kind of narrative. Because why else would they give Benoit Saint-Denis this fight? And Dana always comes out and says, well, we just want to, put on the best fights possible for you guys and, and kind of try and make you feel grateful for these fights. But in reality, it's pretty obvious you're trying to create stars. And I don't blame them, because they do lack stars. They do need to create new stars. The likes of Conor McGregor is a big pay-per-view star isn't going to be around for long. We got a new one just come up in Ilia Topuria. You know, he's massive in Spain now. Sean O'Malley's just going to continue growing and growing. But, you know, they want to cover these territories and really get ahead of the game because PFL are making movements slowly but surely. And if Benoit Saint-Denis was going to get a win in spectacular fashion against a fan favourite in Dustin Poirier, then you've got another potential big star there on the horizon who can make a shot at the lightweight belt, and they can go and headline cards in France. They don't need to rely on Cyril Gane, who's apparently turning down fights at heavyweight left, right and centre. They can put Benoit in there against a big name and still sell tickets. Because the French fans are very passionate, and, you know, we saw that. They do need to come back to France, but, you know, that the jump was massive for Benoit. And when I was doing tape in the week, I just felt that whenever I saw Benoit come forward in those exchanges, I'm not saying he was lucky and by all means, but he was leaving openings. And I felt that against a very crisp boxer in Poirier, and someone who's got a great chin as well, you've got to find the ultimate strike to put him out. And we saw that against Gaethje. You know, you've got to give a lot of looks on the feet and time the ultimate strike to put him away. From Benoit, he does just kind of rush forward a little bit, you know, and swing wild in there. Like we said, Poirier weathered that storm. Benoit was tired, and he was able to catch him pretty easily. So, but I don't think that's it from Benoit. I really don't. Obviously, no movements will happen in the rankings. I think Benoit is going to stay where he is. I'll get into some options for Poirier in just a sec. We'll start with Benoit Saint-Denis. I think the option there for him would be the winner of Jalen Turner versus Renato Moicano, because that fight is happening at UFC 300. That was announced this past weekend. You've got Turner. You could argue that Turner deserves to fight up should he beat Renato Moicano, because he'd be defending his ranking. But at the same time, I'm looking at the division. I'm like, who else would you get then? You know? Surely Fiziev should be due to come back soon. He's already lost to Gamrot. Chandler's freed up. I guess the only real option then for Turner, if he was to make quick work of Moicano, would be Beneil Dariush. But, you know, maybe we'll get Fiziev versus Dariush headlining a fight night, perhaps. Because they're looking at that. Or I guess you could chuck in Hooker in there. I wouldn't mind seeing Dan Hooker versus Fiziev. I think that's a fun one. That's a barn burner, that. So, and he's coming off a win against Turner, and Turner's ranked above him. How does that make sense? Come on, UFC, we get slack in here. Shouldn't you use your Wikipedia like we do? You can easily find out what people's last fights were. But yeah, I think that would be my option really for Benoit. I mean, I know it would be a jump up, but I guess if Moicano loses, you could do Moicano Saint-Denis still. Maybe. I don't know. Some good options there. I still think I like it both for those fights, nonetheless. Wells in the house. Salute, lads, says Wells. Salute, brother. Breezy says BSD versus Fiziev. Book it in France. Co-main. Take my money. Yeah, I like the fun fight. I do. But I'm just not sure if the UFC want to give Saint-Denis another crack at someone above him in the rankings, you know? I know it's a big jump for him against Poirier, but maybe he just needs to take a step back a little bit, you know, judging from the performance. Brother B says, I loved every second of the Diamond being the warrior that he is. I like BSD versus Fiziev, very nice. So, no, some good options in there. That's not one that I considered or written down. Breezy says, I don't have a clue who Dustin fights next, though. Now we give Dustin a shot against Islam, or do we wait until we see the finale of Oliveira versus Sarukian? Good question, Brother B. I think you're onto something there. Yeah, I think we do have to wait for the outcome of that fight, because I'm anticipating the winner of that is going to get Islam as well. And, you know, Poirier's name was thrown into the hat as potentially fighting Islam and jump in the queue against Gaethje, which I think is a bit ridiculous, really. You know, I know Gaethje's fighting Holloway. timing's not going to make sense for Gaethje to jump in there straight after that fight against Islam. But yeah, I think Poirier's got to wait. I think he does. Breezy says if Arman wins, yes. If Oliveira wins, I think he has a claim for the title. Brother B says no matter what, I'm thrilled with an Oliveira and Dariush rematch. Ooh, so soon. I mean, I know you would be. I know you would be because of course I think isn't Dariush down your way in Texas. So yeah, some biasy there for Brother B. Says UFC 300 will paint the picture for lightweights moving forward. Yes, looking forward to it. El Capitano says I think probably Dustin Poirier could be his last dance in the UFC due to his age, but I think he's still got a chance to make it. Oh, absolutely. I think he still does, judging from that performance. I think we would be questioning that if he lost to Benoit. Brother B says, for me, it won't sting as much as if Dustin takes the gloves off after one last shot against Oliveira. Yeah, I mean, yeah, let's get to the fights then for Poirier. He could rematch Charles Oliveira should he lose against Arman Tsarukyan. We said that during the watch long. I would like to see that. But personally, one option which I think has gone under the radar here, I don't know if you guys think it's too soon. I wouldn't mind seeing a trilogy against Justin Gaethje. Now, I know we're kind of a little bit sick of trilogies here and there, but they are 1-1. It would decide who gets the next crack at the belt. It would keep Justin Gaethje active because he's going to be waiting probably for some time. Let's face it. So for Poirier, of course he wants to get that, settle the score, you know? He would be gunning for that trilogy against Gaethje. For Gaethje, though, would he want to take that fight so soon? After getting a spectacular knockout against Poirier. So, you know, not only that, you got Mateusz Gamrot you want to throw in the mix as well. What's next for him? He could very well get the loser of Tsarukyan versus Oliveira. He's not going to fight Poirier. One question that didn't get thrown Poirier's way in the post-fight press conference, which I wish the journalists asked, was whether he would consider fighting Gamrot. You know, they do train together. You still got to ask the question. You still got to ask it. Because otherwise, because that's a fight that actually makes sense at the moment, you know? You gotta try it. You gotta try it. Breezy says no. Brother Breezy says it depends on how he does defending the BMF against such a beloved fighter as Max. Yeah, I mean, for sure. If he goes out there, tools with Max, and gets the finish, which I think some people are expecting, then yeah, we could very well see a quick turnaround. Not only that, BMF, the reigning lightweight champion against the BMF champion sells better for the UFC. So you could make a case that Gaethje is the preferred option over the winner of Charles Oliveira and Tsarukyan. But personally, I'm hoping Tsarukyan beats our Charles Oliveira and we get to see Makhachev-Tsarukyan rematch, because I think that is going to be such a high-level fight. And I think it's much more closely contested than a Charles Oliveira fight for Islam or even a Justin Gaethje fight. That's my point. That's my take on it. I don't know what you guys think about that. Moving on then to the last fight on the card. We got a lot to talk about here. Sean O'Malley picking up the decision win against Marlon Chita Vera. He won me over with this performance because he went 5 rounds and he got 5 rounds under his belt. Check that box. All 3 judges scored O'Malley all 5 rounds. Sal D'Amato scored the 5th round a 10-8 though. There were no knockdowns, and O'Malley's strongest round was actually round 2. So we got a lot of questions to ask Sal D'Amato there for that one. You know, really scratched my head. I replayed that 5th round earlier on today, and I still can't see how he scored it a 10-8. You know, I would score it maybe perhaps a 10-8 if Marlon Vera didn't throw anything or didn't even land anything. But judging from the score, the striking numbers, I think he threw. I think it was like 20 strikes or something. So I don't know. You know, I didn't think that was a worthy of a 10-8. Before I get into now, I've got a special scene for you guys because we're going to break down Topuria versus O'Malley because we're going to ask some questions for it. But heading on into the rankings for this, of course, no changes again. Merab Dvalishvili has got to be next on the radar without a doubt this time. O'Malley's got to really study Merab's game, I think, if he wants to come up with the ultimate kill shot. I think that's what he's going to need because he's not going to win a decision against Merab. It's just not happening. I just can't see it. Merab will win that all day. Merab says Breezy. Brother Reese says nothing to say except O'Malley fought like a champion. Yeah, 100%. The strike by Cheeto putting him on the canvas after the fight does open a narrative for a best 2 out of 3 after Sean fights Merab. I don't know about that. Cheeto versus Yarn probably, says Breezy. Yep, got to agree with that one there. My prediction now, I've got a big prediction for O'Malley versus Merab. I think that Merab is going to get knocked out in this one against O'Malley. I do. Here's how the scenario is going to play out. I think the Merab's going to come forward. He's going to press the pace as always. O'Malley's going to be on that back foot, finding himself against the cage. He's going to anticipate the level change from Merab, and he's going to go for a jumping knee, and he's going to put Merab out that way. Jumping knee, puts Merab to the canvas, couple of follow-up shots, referee stops it. Maybe within the first 2 rounds. Perhaps. That's my prediction. And I think that would catapult O'Malley massively. Because we got to see some more walk-off knockouts from him if he wants to even get anywhere near Conor McGregor levels of stardom. Because I think people think that he's a massive star, and he is to some degree, but I don't think he's that big, is what people think. You know. Merab's becoming a bit of a fan favourite. So O'Malley has said that he wouldn't mind fighting Merab, but that wasn't his ultimate call out, you know? It wasn't his call out at the weekend. And, look, I think we're seeing a bit of a trend here now when fighters win back the belt or they successfully defend the belt, they're making the biggest call out possible. That makes somewhat sense, right? So, a future fight with Ilia Topuria, should it happen next, guys, is a question. So, I'm going to head into this. I'll do it in just a sec. Should it happen next? I wouldn't be mad at it. It is a big fight. Both guys have become big stars of recent. Champions within the last year. Topuria is massive now, I think, in Spain. Volk came out and said he reckons they have a small window to make this fight happen next because he wants to return later on this year against Topuria for the rematch. So he's kind of gave the UFC's blessing in a way, but it does depend on how banged up Cheeto is, of course. And whether or not, of course, surely that Topuria is healthy, right? How soon can they make the Spain card, is my question. Can they make a headliner of Topuria versus O'Malley? Now, I know a lot of people are going to jump the gun and say, look, we need to stop this double champ shooting the shot kind of thing. And I do kind of agree with people. I do agree that you do need to earn it with a few title defenses first before you move up. But this is what happens when the likes of Conor McGregor come in and bend the rules, because that's exactly what he did. Now, you can say, well, but Conor was a different athlete. He brought so many more eyeballs to the sport. He was, making the calls, saying that he's going to knock someone out in 2 rounds, and then he goes out there and does it. And that's how he, trajected himself into pop culture. So he is a bit of an outlaw here. But if you're the UFC and you're struggling to get big time matchups, because of course We still don't know if Conor McGregor is coming back this summer. We still don't know whether or not John Jones is in potentially coming back this summer. I predict that they both will. But if there was a case where both of them aren't, the UFC have really got to look at the summer and go, right, what big fights can we make? Because at the moment, they're only relying on Izzy. They're relying on Alex Pereira as names to even make big cards. Brother Reese says, if Sean beats Merab, Cheeto says from cage side, let's run it back for a third time. I think it's going to be a while till we see that, personally. Brother Reese says, that's my point. Sean gets the knockout. Cheeto is cage side. The story unfolds. Okay, all right, maybe. Sai says, no, they need to stop the cross-division nonsense. At least calm it down a bit. Yeah, true. Brother B says, Sean wins third time against Cheeto. He should leave the division, and I like him facing Paddy Big. Wow. Big calls from Brother B out there. I think Sean O'Malley's got a long list of competitors before he even considers that. He's got lots of people coming up his way. Umar is inevitable, says Breezy. Got to agree with that one. Not this year, but next. But it is inevitable. Brother B says Umar definitely can dominate once he surpasses the Sandman. That is true. That is going to be the next shot in line, really, isn't it? Because Corey currently has a case for the belt. Because he's had some impressive wins. Yeah. Agreed. If Figueiredo beats Cody Garbrandt, he can perhaps make a shot, make a claim. So, but look, back on the topic of Topuria versus O'Malley. Let's break this down then. Some of you disagree that it shouldn't happen next, and I do agree. I kind of agree and disagree. Personally, it depends what the UFC's situation is at. If I head into this scene here, then let's break things down then. Between Topuria and O'Malley. You've got Topuria on one side, he's 15-0 to O'Malley 17-1 with one no contest. Very close in terms of records there. You've got Topuria's 5 knockouts versus O'Malley's 12 knockouts. You've got the 8 submissions for Topuria versus O'Malley's 1 submission. You've got Topuria on one side, who's a bit of a power puncher, against O'Malley, who's more of a volume striker. You've also got Topuria, who's more of an inside the pocket kind of guy, against O'Malley, who's a bit more of a rangier sniper, who will kind of come in, land with volume, and then get out again. You've got the black belt in Topuria, which I didn't actually know he was a black belt till today, which is quite surprising. I mean, we probably said it before in previous breakdowns, but let's be honest, we break down a lot of fights. So this information goes whoop as soon as the weekend is finished. So yeah, you got brown belt for Sean O'Malley there, who's done a fair few grappling tournaments in the past as well. Question is, what would Topuria have to do to beat Sean O'Malley? Well, first of all, I think he needs to use his footwork to crowd O'Malley, get past the kicking offense, attack the front leg, back him towards the cage where he can kind of put his combinations together, where we kind of saw against Volkanovski, and mix in his wrestling as well, because he has got good wrestling. Granted, he roughed up Bryce Mitchell pretty bad. He did get the submission against Bryce, and, the most submissions there on the list, as you can see there. So if you're Topuria, that would be your best path to victory against someone like O'Malley. As for O'Malley, though, what does he need to do to beat Ilia Topuria? I think he needs to use different looks on the feet, get Topuria freezing up, use a lot of feints, be fast when entering range and getting out, because look, he doesn't want to get caught in a counter shot against Topuria. That's for sure. But he's got to set things up proper. He needs to manage that distance if he wants to do that, and use his diversing kicking offense. He likes to use the teep to the body quite a lot, the side kicks often. And they really help to kind of set up his hands in ways. So that's a little bit of a quick breakdown on that fight. Should that get made in future? Maybe, it might not happen next, but it could happen down the line for sure. If I want to make a prediction, I've got to say Ilia Topuria. Probably decision, maybe a late submission if he's lucky. It would be pretty insane if O'Malley was to get the win. If he was to get the win, he would have to be like a walk-off knockout in a way. I just can't see him landing big. I mean, he could land, I don't know. I just can't see him landing big enough against Topuria, against a bigger guy, who's also fought a lightweight as well. Let's not add that in there. Breezy says Topuria mauls him. The range is Ilia's weakness, but he's fought rangy fighters before. Don't get me wrong, almost got done by Jai, but this would be easy work. So, sorry, you can't really see that chat there. I don't know why it's come up there. There we go. So, yeah, a great, cracking comment from Breezy there. Got to agree with you. At the moment, that's the way it's looking. But who knows, maybe a few more title defenses from O'Malley. If he gets that walk-off knockout win against Merab next, for example, then you got to then question, can he beat Topuria? And of course, it also depends on whether or not Topuria beats Volk in the rematch. I, in a way, hope so. If Volk wins, then of course we're going to see a trilogy. We're going to see a trilogy 100%. But, you never know with the UFC these days. Like I said, this fight could happen next. You never really know if they get too desperate. So, yeah, that's my breakdown of that fight, guys. My next fight for Marlon Vera, we talked about, of course, earlier on in the show. We talked about him potentially fighting Marlon Peter Yan even, sorry. But other than that, you would say probably the winner of Figueiredo versus Garbrandt as an option as well. Let's head on back then to the main screen then to wrap things up. Don't forget to smash a like on the video if you've not done so already, guys. Leave a comment if you're joining us the next day. And, of course, all opinions matter most here at Against the Fence. We've got lots coming your way. I'm going to be doing a new show tomorrow night, the same time. We're going to go through the headlines from these past few days. And talk about maybe perhaps the Bo Nickel versus Cody Brundage getting put on the main card of UFC 300 and various other bits of gossip. So make sure you've got the notifications bell rang on the channel so you can keep up to date with everything that's going down here at Against the Fence. Sound off, Brother Bree says, I have my doubts for Sean versus Ilia. Well done as always, JK. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you guys for tuning in as a chat as always. I'll see you tomorrow night. Get a good night's sleep. We'll be back to chalk things up tomorrow. So, ciao for now. Bye-bye.